Thank you for coming to Emma Galleries. Thank you so much, Frank, for hosting my art. I wish I could be there to explain it and talk with everybody. Um, However, I'm in France at the moment, so I just wanted to take this opportunity to describe my inspiration and talk a little bit about um, my paintings. I used to be an assistant winemaker back in Oregon and Washington, and I worked a lot in the vineyards and the harvest with a lot of very special, awesome people. And at that time, I was learning a lot about wine, a lot about soils and the importance of the region that they were growing in, and why certain grapes were to be grown in certain spots. And there's a word in French that's called terroir that's used very commonly in the wine industry. And terroir is just an ecological definition of the factors that go into the end result of a wine. It can also be used for other things too, but more particularly, it's the slope, it's the drainage, it's the wine, it's the varietals, the grapes that you're using. It's where the sun sets and rises. It's and more importantly, it's the soil, whether it's going to offer good drainage or if it's going to just leave the water right up on top. So that will determine the end result of a wine, to the color, to the smell, to the taste, and eventually to the finish. It's extremely important. And after absorbing all of this information, I wandered back to my hometown in Hopewell, where back to my comfort zone, where all my friends were, and I began a position in my field to visit all of the vineyards in France, and I had firsthand experience to see the difference between the northern and the southern part of France, and they're very different from each other. They used to once be two very different ancient ocean beds. And the north was composed of a lot of chalky limestone Kimmeridgian soils that offer great drainage. And the south was a little bit more of this kind of clay, schist, heavier material that now kind of compresses all the water on top. And I got to see a lot of I got to discover these seashells inside of the soil in these vineyards, and they're the little ammonites that I paint that are down on the bottom, or they're little seashells in the shape of stars called étoiles, or huge ammonites the size of a Volkswagen bus. And in the south, you'll find teeth, you'll find other ancient marine life, you'll find the huge galets in Châteauneuf-du-Pape. It's a very, very, very complex system, and I became very fascinated with painting roots and different soil compositions. So as you can see before you, I tried to paint all of these different types of soils where you would find these vines, and it was a instinctual transformation that was bound to happen. And it was pretty ironic coming back home and painting all of these roots. So that's where they come in. I was trying to keep a naturalistic approach by slowly incorporating small fossils, little bones, things like that, things that you might find if you were to unearth the soil, and they would be entangled inside of the roots. So I did that for a while, as you can see. And one of my very last paintings before I left to France had absolutely no roots whatsoever. I had completely just obliterated the trunk, obliterated the branches, obliterated the top part of it. I kept on painting deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper, so eventually it was just the roots, it was just the soil, and it was the inside. And my last painting just didn't have any of that whatsoever. It was just this kind of discovery of these prehistoric fossils and bones and things like that. So it was millions of years old. It was kind of like discovering this like entombed treasure. And I've always been fascinated by doing skeletons. I love the texture, the colors, the sleekness of the bones, the colors that they capture when they've been encased in certain types of soils for millions and millions of years. And at some points I wish that I had taken a different career path and been a paleontologist or an archaeologist, and more recently a geologist, so I could speak more intellectually about these. But alas, no, I'm kind of resort to my books and things like that. So just recently, I moved just outside of Paris in Rue-Malmaison, and I've had the opportunity to visit all of the amazing museums here. And one of them that was really, really magnificent was the paleontology wing at the Museum of Natural History. And it's just an incredible building that's built out of cast iron and glass, super ornate, dates back to the late 1800s, and has this incredible, staggering collection of just hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of species of bones and fossils. And it's quite overwhelming when you walk into it because they're all facing in the same direction, like a stampede. So I spent about 5-6 hours there on an empty stomach, drawing everything I possibly could. And upon arriving home, I had began a few paintings, which you can see later, of singular skulls and skeletons. And what I'm trying to do right now is kind of incorporate an environment that I think that these creatures may have lived in at one point in time, and making it so that the environment is still alive. And it's taken a decorative approach because of the other inspirations I've seen at other museums. You know, a lot of the Art Nouveau comes in, a lot of these very old styles come in, and I try to incorporate live organisms like moss or algae or flowers, you know, a lot of flora, a lot of fauna, and also to other creatures to kind of make it seem a little bit more natural, a little bit more realistic. And I feel like I'm trying to give life to a prehistoric beast without disrupting what time has already done. So you have these skeletons or these skulls, and they're kind of resting in place, or they might be moving in with the scenery, and everything's kind of combined and swirling around it. So I think it's a pretty unique approach, and I'm really excited about where it's going. I don't know what the next step is going to be, but I hope to include a little bit of my new Parisian life in with my paintings. So that's just a little bit of a blurb about my inspiration. And I wanted to thank you so much for checking these things out. If you guys have any questions whatsoever, talk to Frank. He has all of my information, and I am also available whenever. So thank you again, and have a great day. Thanks, Frank.